Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Dr. Evelyne Bourdua-Roy is a family medicine doctor who is also board certified in obesity medicine by the American Board of Obesity Medicine. Additionally, she is trained with Dr. Jason Fung and Megan Ramos in Toronto at their Intensive Dietary Management clinic, and has also trained with Dr. Georgia Eid on the ketogenic diet. Dr. Bourdua-Roy has co-authored 2 best-selling books in Quebec in French, which I won't try to pronounce, but the first volume was translated into English under the title, Eat Fat to Lose Weight with the Keto and Low-Carb Diet. In January of 2017, Dr. Bourdua-Roy founded Clinique Reversa, which is a not-for-profit metabolic program that aims to help patients reverse their lifestyle-related chronic diseases. This program is led by a multidisciplinary team made up of several medical professionals under Dr. Bourdua-Roy's certification. She blogs for Diet Doctor when time permits and has written several articles for other media outlets, including Le Nutrition. Dr. Bourdua-Roy, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you to Balanced Body Radio.
Hi, Casey. It's an honor to be here with you today.
It's such an honor to host you, and I'm just laughing at myself for how many times I butchered your name in the introduction. I tried my best.
I love it. It's great.
So my history with French, I did take French as an elective class in grade 8 and 9. And I basically didn't learn anything in that time. The only times I really learned anything is when we would watch things. So we used to watch some things in French. And I remember a particular cartoon. I don't know if this is like a really popular cartoon, but I seem to recall it was like Tele Francais or something. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, I don't know. What era are we talking about?
Oh, geez. It was probably 90s or something. I remember the jingle would start out like Tele Francais, bonjour, au revoir, salut. And that was like the only thing I remember. And I remember also that one of the main characters was a pineapple. And so I remember Je suis ananas, which I believe is I'm a pineapple. And that's pretty much all I know. Pretty terrible. Pretty terrible. Well, you have a history of languages yourself. So you speak many languages, and you actually started working as a translator. Is that correct?
Well, not many languages, but my first degree was in translation, English, French, and Spanish. I did that in Toronto, and I worked as a translator. And then, so like I love languages. And then I went on later on to do a master's degree in French linguistics. But I really like languages. I started learning Mandarin recently. I started learning Greek a few years ago, and German a little bit. I would love to be paid to learn languages full time. Like that's my job in life. I just learn languages, and somebody pays me for that. That would be amazing. But unfortunately, it's more of a hobby or pastime. And if you want to learn a language and be good at it, you really have to dedicate like a lot of time to it. There's no magic into it, right? You have to read, you have to listen, you have to watch TV, you have to practice speaking. So it's a lot of effort. So my Mandarin might not be going very far. I'm too busy with all kinds of projects.
Wow. No, that's amazing. I'm fluent in Portuguese. So that's a language I picked up, but I'm only fluent in Portuguese because I lived in Brazil. And you're right, like immersing yourself in the culture, even doing that, it takes a tremendous amount of work and time and practice. Yes. But you really got to appreciate language that especially like Latin languages that have a lot of I don't know, they follow the same rules, and it's got like a kind of a rhythm, which is really beautiful. Portuguese is very similar to French in a lot of ways. And it was only then trying to teach Portuguese speaking Brazilians how to speak English that I realized what a horrible, very difficult language English is to learn. It's crazy. There's all these rules, but it always breaks all the rules anyway.
Yeah, well, French also has a lot of crazy rules, or a lot of exceptions, irregularities, and all that. So, but learning a language is more about the richness of being able to communicate with more people and expanding your mind and your culture and your horizons. So it's not easy, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I agree. It's such a wonderful way to understand people and understand how they speak language even differently in different countries. English here versus Canada versus England. It's all just a little bit different and nuanced based on that environment. Well, I absolutely love that. As much as I'd love to talk about language with you, we do need to talk about your interest in the low carbohydrate space. And so I'm wondering, how did you transition from, having an interest in language to then having an interest in the medical field and then finding low carbohydrate?
Oh, well, Yeah, there's like no connection between, languages, translation, linguistics, and medicine. I never thought I would become a doctor. I always thought I would be into the somehow languages, either teaching or maybe a speech therapist or something like that. But when I started working as a translator, I realized that even though it's fun to do the mental gymnastics of, taking a sentence in English and turning it into a perfect French sentence, like it's a challenge and it's fun. It's not so fun if you do that 24/7. Well, not 24/7, but 5 days a week, 9 to 5. A lot of people love it, and that's fine. But I didn't love it because I felt I wasn't making a difference. I felt like I was just working and making money and working and making money, and I really like it. I know it sounds really corny and stuff, but it's true. I really felt like I had a different calling in life. I wanted to make a difference. And so I decided to apply to med school. But as you may imagine, not everyone who applies to med school gets in, right? And in order to apply to med school, I had to go back to school and get 10 courses of pure science, math and biology and physics and all that. And I was like 27, and I dedicated a whole year of my life to doing those courses, and then I would be allowed to apply and see if I could get in or not. So there was a chance that I could waste an entire year studying sciences for nothing. But fortunately, wow, it wasn't for nothing, as I was accepted into med school. And my goal was to become a family doctor and to do a work that is significant, that can impact powerfully, like significantly, positively the lives of people, So I went to medicine, and it was pretty hard. It was really hard. And at some point I thought I wasn't going to make it, but I thought I was going to have to give it all up because it's really hard. But when I finished med school and I started practicing as a family doctor, then it got really depressing. Then I thought, okay, I did not waste one whole year doing science classes. I wasted 9 years of my prime years, my late 20s and all my 30s going to med school, because the work that I do now is not great. It's not helpful. It's not making a difference, because a family doctor nowadays is somebody who needs to see patients every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes or so. They come in with all kinds of complaints, and you hardly have any time to discuss with them. You end up prescribing pills and pills and pills and more pills to cover the side effects of the first pills you prescribed, and patients are not getting any better. And it's really working in a sickness. And it wasn't what I imagined it would be. But then I was pregnant at the time with my second child. And so I took a maternity leave, obviously. And during my maternity leave, other doctors told me about this great book that was called The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung. And they said to me quickly, you can eat fat and like lose weight. And to be honest, I was postpartum, so I was hoping to lose a few pounds. So in a really like close-minded, selfish way, I read that book for myself just to lose a few pounds. But I discovered, what I read in my book basically changed my life, my personal life, but also my professional life. So whoever hasn't read yet The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung, he's a Toronto nephrologist, so a kidney expert, a kidney doctor. And so that book really, it was the door that opened for me into the world of metabolic health, nutrition, low carb, fasting, hyperinsulinemia, insulin resistance, and all that. And it was amazing. It was amazing to read that book, but it was also really frustrating. Actually, I was quite mad. I read that book and I was really pissed off, if I can say that. I was really mad. And part of my brain is still occupied. A few neurons of mine are occupied 24/7 at being mad, because ever since I read that book, because I had just finished med school and residency, and basically nothing that is written in that book was taught to me. I never learned about hyperinsulinemia. I never learned about insulin resistance. I never learned about eating carbs, what eating carbs do inside to your metabolic system, what is really type 2 diabetes, what is really obesity, what is really fatty liver, hypertension, all those diseases, the chronic diseases that are related to insulin, therefore related to lifestyle habits. I never learned any of that, and I had just graduated, so I was quite mad. But sometimes you read something and you're like, oh, it sounds really good on paper, but does it hold true in reality? Does it actually work? So I thought, well, I'm in maternity leave anyway, so I have a bit of time to try it and see what happens. So I designed like a 2-week plan for myself, and I applied that, to the T, and I did it religiously, perfectly for 2 weeks. And seriously, I had results right away. My energy was better, and my baby was not a sleeper. Like he's still a bad sleeper, but he was a terrible sleeper back then. So I was really drained from energy. And when you're really, really tired for all kinds of reasons, you tend to eat more. So I was gaining weight in my postpartum, despite the fact that I was breastfeeding. So I was gaining weight. And all of a sudden, I wasn't sleeping anymore. I wasn't exercising anymore. I wasn't doing anything different except what I was eating and what I was not eating. And that I started losing weight, but I started to get more energy. I started to get more mental clarity. I started to feel better, to be in a better mood. And so I thought, okay, this makes sense in theory on paper, but it also seems to be working for me. There is something there that, I need to explore further. And if it really works the way it seems to be working, then I need to be able to tell my patients about this. They deserve to know. So I reached out to Dr. Jason Fung and his clinic director, Megan Ramos. They are in Toronto. I'm around Montreal, so it's just a 6-hour drive. And I said, I wrote to them and I said, please teach me how to do this with patients. I need to learn this medicine. Because I felt that this type of medicine would be a medicine that would make a difference, that would make, that would bring positive changes, that wouldn't be about sickness, but would be about health. And to make a long story short, they both said, okay, come, So a few months later, I had my spot because a lot of people wanted to train with them. They closed their clinics. So their clinic has been closed since December 2019, just before the pandemic hit. But back in those days, they had people, observers and learners every week almost. So a few months later, I had my opportunity to go to Toronto and spend a week with them. And it was life-changing. It was amazing. I always said I could never unsee what I saw there, unlearn what I learned there. I could never practice medicine the same way ever again after spending a week with them. It was completely life-changing. I mean, their patients were coming in happy, skipping, like almost singing or something. They were smiling and they were happy to come and tell Megan and tell Jason how well they were doing, how their blood sugar had gone down again, how they've lost another few kilos again, and how they felt so much better. And it was one patient after the other, after the other, after the other coming in and feeling better. And we don't see that in medicine, especially with chronic diseases. Nobody who's type 2 diabetes comes to my office to say, hey, I'm doing better. Oh, I'm doing even better than the last time I saw you, doctor. I just came in to tell you how better I am. I don't really need anything from you. No, that never happens. In regular medicine, family medicine clinic, patients come in because they're not doing well. Their blood sugars are higher than they were. We need more medicine. We need more, blood sugar lowering. Their tension, their blood pressure is higher than it was 2 months ago. They've gained, and they've gained weight again, and they're feeling depressed and discouraged and all of that. This is what we see every day, all the time. People who are not patients, who are not doing better, but not their patient. Their patients were doing much better. And so after I finished my week of observation with them, I said, I need to do this medicine. And I have the strongest feeling that this is why I went into medicine. I want to make a difference. Prescribing pills will not make a difference, but teaching patients to do this will make a difference. And so that's how I founded Clinique Reversa in January 2017. And it's a not-for-profit, but it's not free because we have to pay for, the nurses, the kinesiologists, the psychologists, the admin assistant, the coaches, everybody who's involved in that multidisciplinary team. But I don't make any money from it. It's actually, it takes time away from doing regular medicine, but I love it. It pays me 100 times on a different level, in a different way. It pays me with gratification of knowing that, professional satisfaction of knowing that my patients are getting better. Since we founded the clinic in 2017, we've had approximately 2,000 patients come in for the 6-month program. So we have like a cohort of about 16 patients around every 2 weeks or so. So that's how I went from, being a translator to being a family doctor, a miserable family doctor, to being a doctor who's very much interested in biometabolic health and everything we can do to change our lifestyle habits, to take control of our own health and to get better instead of getting worse.
Wow, what an amazing story. We are so grateful for people like you in the world who really are so passionate about something and care so much that the dollar amount is much less important than that feeling at the end of the day, knowing you made a difference in somebody's life. I absolutely love that. And I love Jason Fung. I followed his work for a long time. And he is so good at explaining the science, and especially when it comes to things like insulin resistance and how insulin works in the body. And I love the way he approaches that. But I also love the way he approaches things in the way that's like kind of common sense. Like, as much as we, love the studies and love the science and love to get all the data, there's also like, let's just use our brains and think about this. And he has this like really sarcastic and kind of snarky way of like telling people like, your body is not stupid. Like, why are you putting more carbohydrates into a person that has a problem with carbohydrates? And like kids don't need like all of these snacks and Gatorades to go play soccer. We never had that when we grew up. You just go play. And so I love that he takes that approach when he explains things. And I couldn't agree more about Obesity Code. If you have not read it, put it on your list. It's absolutely amazing. Do you remember some of the biggest like principles that really blew your mind about that book?
Anything that had to do with what is insulin, what does it do inside your body, what is hyperinsulinemia, so when you have too much going around in your blood, and what is insulin resistance and everything that it does in your body. He doesn't go over everything that it does in your body, but it's a good enough intro that you understand that the more insulin you have in your body, the sicker you are. Bickman goes into a deeper dive into insulin resistance and the trouble with insulin in his book, Why We Get Sick, which is another excellent book. But I think Jason covers enough of what is insulin, what is insulin resistance, to be an eye opener. And I do not understand how come that is not in the radar of most faculty medicine. We do not get that taught. And I read that book in 2016. I graduated in 2015. So it's not even like, back in the days, 30 years ago when I did my degree, we didn't know anything about insulin resistance. We do. We know about insulin resistance. We don't care. We pretend it doesn't exist. We pretend it's not important. We don't even teach it in the faculties of medicine. How crazy is that?
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. So I had the opportunity to work on a metabolic cart for over a decade. So I was actually measuring people's metabolic rates. And in particular, we would do it while people were exercising. So we get VO2 scores and calorie burn rates and fat oxidation and things like that. But we'd also do resting metabolic rate tests. And so, over time, we would find if somebody did a calorie restricted diet and they did a lot of exercise, chances are over time, their metabolic rate would reduce. And so we would get used to telling people like, okay, whatever your resting metabolic rate is, you need to eat at least that many calories to keep that metabolism high. And that's the way I understood it for a long time, until fasting started to get a little bit more popular. And I could not explain this mechanism. People would come in, let's say, based on their age, height, weight, and gender, they should have had a resting metabolic rate of about 2,000 calories. People who did fasting would come in to do the test, we would measure their metabolic rate, not at a normal level, not at a lower level, but a much higher level. I remember one guy in particular, 2,600 calories, 600 calories burned at rest more than what it should have been. And I said, wow, like this is really good. Your fat burning rates are really good. Like this is great. No wonder you're losing so much fat and weight. But now you have to eat 2,600 calories or else your metabolism is going to crash. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and he was like, I can't, what do I do to eat that many calories? Do you want me to go back to eating like soda and Twinkies? And I was like, yeah, that doesn't really make a lot of sense either. And it wasn't until I came across the Obesity Code that I realized what was going on. These people are burning more calories because their body is finally allowed to burn the calories, not just coming from food, but the calories they've already stored from food in the past. And that was the only way I could ever explain that. It made so much sense.
Exactly. Jason says all the time, like if you are storing body fat, and most of us are, let's face it, if you're storing body fat in your body and you're fasting, why would your body go burn your muscles? If, you know, like your body is not stupid to do that. Your body wants to burn the extra fat that you have in your body. It's there for that. It's there to be used for energy when you need it. But you need to be able to have access, metabolic access to your stored energy, your stored fat in your body. And that makes all the difference in the world, that kind of switch that your metabolism can do. And that's important to teach it to patients, because if you're gonna go hypocaloric and restrict and eat low fat and eat small portions every 2 hours and blah blah, you're gonna tank your metabolism, and you're not even gonna lose proper weight, because you've inhibited the switch, the metabolic switch. Whereas if you do low carb, you do keto, if you do fasting, or a combination of all of that, then you allow your body to go dig into your fat reserve. You enhance lipolysis, and you can get great results with that, and definitely no reduction in a basal metabolism, definitely.
Yeah.
So you
right.
get I was gonna say you get long-term weight loss and maintenance, because let's face it, anybody can lose weight. Like in 2 weeks, you can lose weight. You can eat like cabbage soup every day for 2 weeks. You'll lose weight. Are you going to keep it off? No, you won't. No, you won't. And will it be harder to lose weight after that? Yeah, the yo-yo effect of dieting over and over. All those diets are almost always hypocaloric, and that's how they make you lose weight. So you lose weight at first, but then your metabolism catches up. And then either your metabolism catches up, or your brain is like, enough with this, restriction and being deprived so much, I can't take it anymore. And you go back to your old habits and you explode. But either way, you lose weight, you plateau, and you regain more. And that's the story of like 80% of the patients, who consult me for weight loss or metabolic health at the clinic. They've done this yo-yo the whole lives, and every time you go back up, you take a bit more than the previous time, right? Yeah. Yep. So learning about that switch, learning about how to dig into your fat reserve to switch into lipolysis as opposed to inhibiting lipolysis. This is I get that knowledge from Jason Fung as well. I did not know that before that.
Yeah, it's really absolutely amazing. You mentioned the cabbage soup diet. One of my favorite diet books I've ever come across was called The New Cabbage Soup Diet. And I was like, there's a new one now? Like, are you acknowledging the old one didn't work? Like, what is the new one going to do? Is it more cabbage? Like, what are you doing? But yeah, we saw that all the time on our metabolic carts. We would measure people, and it was almost exactly the same as that Biggest Loser study they released in like 2016, where you are heavier than when you started, but your metabolic rate is still very, very low. It doesn't necessarily recover really well just because you start eating more. It's really terrible. Yet we still tell people the same advice. You need to eat less and you need to move more, but that's causing that long-term effect. Like you said, if we just took that same formula, calories in, calories out, and look at it backwards and said, how do we get your body just to burn more calories being yourself? And people would lose weight effortlessly without hunger. We see it all the time now, but you have to look at that differently.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. So there's such an incredible delta between your experience, the way you were practicing medicine before, and all of a sudden finding this new way of doing things. You spend a week with these guys, see everybody jumping around and skipping because they're actually, improving themselves, getting off of medications, all kinds of amazing results. So of course you're going to be super stoked and excited to go do this on your own. What was that experience like when you started to bring this back into your own clinic?
Well, back in the days, it still is the case, but less now. But back in the days, 2016, as I started building a clinic, I was met with a lot of skepticism, obviously. Like, honestly, Casey, if I told you, hey, you could lose weight by eating more fat, it sounds ridiculous. Everybody knows that is not how you lose weight, right? Everybody knows that eating fat will make you fat, right? So it is so ingrained in our brains now that nobody thought, well, hold on, we've been eating low fat since the 80s and look at us now. How's that working out for us? Obviously not working out really well. We've, as a society in the States or in Canada, we've never been fatter, and it's our children have never been fatter than they are now, so obviously eating less fat hasn't worked out. But we, as a society, we haven't, I think, reached a point where everybody goes, okay, this is ridiculous. Eating less fat to lose weight is ridiculous. We're still not there, I think. But I arrived with my ideas that, hey, eating fat will make you lose fat, and fasting is good for you, and it's not dangerous, and it won't tank your metabolism and all that. Yeah, a lot of people were skeptical. It's controversial. Obviously, that's not what's taught in med school. It's definitely not in our guidelines. It even just treating diabetes, because my main focus wasn't necessarily obesity. It was, but I know that people who eat properly will lose weight anyway, most of them anyway. So I thought, let's focus on reversing type 2 diabetes, and they'll lose weight anyway. So my clinic was mainly about reversing type 2 diabetes, but even that's controversial because everybody knows you don't reverse type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is chronic and progressive. We learned that in med school. It's chronic and progressive. The only thing that you can do is try to manage it the best you can, and try to ward off the complications as long as possible. But eventually you will fall apart into pieces because your eyes will go, your kidneys will go, your toes will go, and there's nothing that can be done about it, which is completely false. It's a fallacy, and we're still saying that to patients all over the world. Not still 2022, we are still saying us doctors that type 2 diabetes is chronic and progressive, but it is not, and it doesn't have to be. And this is something that needs to be known, needs to be told, and we need to scream it off the top of all the roofs in the world. Type 2 diabetes can be reversed, and most of the complications of type 2 diabetes can be stopped, and some of them can even be reversed. But anyway, so me saying, hey, come to my clinic, give me money, I'll make you eat fat, and you'll reverse your type 2 diabetes, and you will lose weight, by the way, right? It was crazy. It was craziness. So yeah, a lot of colleagues, a lot of doctors, a lot of healthcare professionals thought I was completely crazy. Some of them were quite vocal in the social media about that. But the worst part was the complaints that I got, and I guess that's where you want to be headed to head with me. I got some official complaints at the college, the College of Physicians of Quebec, which is the body that delivers our permits. To practice medicine, in Quebec, I need a permit, and the college is the one that delivers and keeps my permit valid, right? So it's like the highest instance of highest body of governments for doctors. So I got 2 official complaints, and it was very difficult, let me tell you, because I felt in my heart, I felt like I was doing something right. I felt I was helping people. I felt I had found a way to make a difference. And I was making a difference because we were getting tremendous results. It was unbelievable. What we were getting was almost like a miracle, because nobody sees that. Nobody sees somebody on insulin after 30 years of being on insulin doesn't need insulin anymore, and go like somebody who goes. Not everybody can go back to not being on insulin. I don't want to make people believe anything, but we had quite a few patients who were on tremendous doses of number of units of insulin, and were able to fully reverse that. Some of them were able to reverse it to the point where they needed no medication, not even metformin, not even like the most basic drugs, and they went back to having normal blood sugar levels. So this is like, it's like a miracle. Nobody ever sees that, unless maybe with bariatric surgeries, But other than that, just from dieting, eating properly, and no, that's like unheard of, unseen ever. So anyway, so we were getting great results, and I was quite happy doing this type of medicine. I wasn't doing it full time. It's like one Friday every 2 weeks. The rest of the time I did regular family medicine. I worked in a jail also, so I did stuff like that. But every other Friday was my favorite day of making a difference on this planet. And so it hit really hard when I got my 2 official complaints, and I had to take an attorney, and I had to prepare my defense, and I had to appear in front of a sort of a jury. There were 3 doctors who were investigating, questioning me, and it was a nightmare. It was a total nightmare, and I cried the whole time, but ugly cry, cry with snots and all that, and not being able to control myself, like total ugly cry in front of all those people. And at the end of it, my lawyer said, in my whole entire career, I have never seen anything like this. This was horrible, and this was the longest interview or whatever that I've ever seen. And I was terrified. Casey, let me tell you, I was terrified, not that they would take away my license, but that they would tell me, doctor, you keep your license, but you can never again practice this type of medicine. That would have been the worst. That would have made practicing medicine not worth it for me anymore. And I said that to my husband. I said, if they forbid me, if they prohibit me from doing this medicine, then I don't think I want to be a doctor anymore. I'll be a housewife. It's not my style, but I'll do something else. I'll go back to translation. I'll train for something else, but I cannot, now that I know what I know, now that I've seen what I've seen and learned what I learned, I cannot go back to pretending. I cannot go back to just popping pills, prescribing pills and seeing people for 10 minutes and not telling them they have the power to improve their health, their metabolic health. It's in their hands. Let me teach you how. Like just to say, oh, your blood sugars are high again. We're going to increase your insulin by 10 more units. See you in 3 months. No, that is not worth it. This medicine is not worth it for me. So that was the scariest part for me, was would they let me keep my license, but take away my right to practice this medicine. Not my right, but take away my option to do this medicine. And at the end, it took a long time, but at the end they did not. I was cleared, but it took a long time, and I was really scared. I had nightmares about this for years afterwards. So like total PTSD, like a post-traumatic syndrome disorder, definitely. Since then I've had quite a few other complaints. So now I'm a bit less stressed. I'm still very annoyed when I get them, but I'm less stressed about it because I know what I'm doing is right. And I know that there's so much evidence and science nowadays that really, I don't think they could, they can attack me to take me down. And I don't think they can, but they can still annoy me a lot. And they do.
Wow. Well, I just think it speaks so much to your character that again, like your passion is helping people. It's not making a paycheck. You could have just gone back and said, okay, you're right. I'm sorry. I won't talk about this. I'll just practice medicine. You could have, kept writing prescriptions and made a good paycheck and a good living for the rest of your life. But this is what blows me away. How many doctors have you complained about?
How many doctors have I?
Have you ever gone out and made like a formal complaint or requested an investigation on somebody else? Ever? Would that ever even occur to you?
Never. That is not how you solve problems anyway. And no.
It's crazy because I see this all the time, and now that our little business is starting to grow a little bit, people are finding the podcast and leaving us feedback, and especially on YouTube, we'll get so many people that are like vegan or plant-based, and they'll say like the worst things, and you try to engage them and say like, oh, well, why do you think that? What is something in this interview that's garbage? Why did you say this was garbage? What about it? And they won't even talk to you. They won't have a conversation. There was a vegan on Twitter that I reached out to and said, hey, look, I'm having a tough time like even making friends. I just want to like have a conversation. Let's just talk. I don't want to debate or say you're insane for believing something. I want to try to understand and build bridges. And the person blocked me. They blocked me. And to see so many people like throwing shade and complaining, like, why would you take 5 seconds out of your day to go do that? Go live your life. It blows my mind.
It blows my mind too, that people are not curious. Okay, she or some of the doctors are doing XYZ. And it seems to be working for their patients, and they don't seem to be making millions out of this. So maybe there's something to it. I'm gonna go learn a little bit before I voice on the social media my opinion that this is crap, or this doesn't work, or this is, a charlatan or whatever. We need to keep an open mind. It's not like we know everything about medicine today. It's not like we can cure everything. We have all the answers. We know everything. We have everything figured out. We don't. There's so many conditions. There's so many health problems for which we don't have an answer. There's so many things we don't know yet, or we partially know, but not quite. We're not successful all the time with, in modern medicine. There's so many things we don't know about the human body still, and about nutrition still. So I think you have to remain humble and open-minded, because nobody knows everything. The top specialists in the world about anything, the top doctors or the top nutritionists, they don't know everything, because we don't know everything. We need to keep an open mind, and especially when something seems to be marginal or different or weird or counterintuitive or counter what common knowledge or something. You need to keep an open mind. One of the things I was told the most in 2017, 16, 17, 18 is that there's no science. There's no science. You're doing something that is not evidence-based. I'm like, I'm sorry, but there's already a ton of science on this. Have you gone out of your way to go find it and read it? Obviously, this is not the stuff that you will find in your continuing medical education, weekend training, the yearly training for family doctors or whatever. It's not mainstream yet, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? So before you say, oh, there's no science on this, well, have you gone out and looked into the science to see, okay, what is there science on this? If so, what it is, what does it say, what it is, what does it not say? And then make up your own mind based on that, as opposed to, oh, there's no science on this. There's tons of science. There's more and more science. It's booming. The science on metabolic health, the science on reversing chronic conditions, the science on fasting, all of that it's booming. The science on nutrition too. It's not as simplistic as cutting out or reducing one macro. You reduce fat, you lose weight, right? Or you don't get heart disease, or you cut out carbs, all of a sudden you lose weight and whatever, you reverse type 2 diabetes. It's not that simple. It's complex, right? So all of us are still learning, but you have to keep an open mind about it. And I don't know. I didn't see it, at first. I would, people were a lot more skeptical than they were open-minded, but I think times are changing and it's getting better now.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think the science is really important. Like we talked about, there has been a lot of science. More is coming out all the time. And now it's like we've got anecdote as well. And it's like one person gets better, then 10 people get better, then 100 people get better. And all these numbers keep growing. And hopefully it starts to force this issue where there's such a critical mass of people not following the standard of care that are all getting better, that somebody's going to have to say, okay, we have to acknowledge this. It's too many people that this is working for, and too few people that this won't work for. I have a really tough time finding people that this doesn't work across the board for so many different things.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I have like about 2,000 patients so far, so I have a lot of data, and I know for a fact that the vast majority of people, they improve their metabolic health. They do. Like this, it works. If you change your lifestyle, if you change your diet, if you change your sleep, your stress, your fasting, eating, your schedule and all that, you can get absolutely amazing results. And this is it's beyond anecdotal for me after 2,000 patients, but a lot of doctors are seeing the same results across the globe, because I'm not the only one. I'm following the footsteps of giants, like Dr. Eric Westman, for instance. Like he's amazing. He has a lot of clinical experience, but he has similar results. I have similar results as he gets, and a lot of doctors are, we're getting the same results. So this is undeniable. But also, I have to say that, well, you probably know, but during the pandemic in May 2020, finally, Diabetes Canada, which is the equivalent of the American Diabetes Association, published a document, an article in which it said that the evidence is there. There is a lot of evidence now about how eating low carb or very low carb, which is ketogenic, has a lot of data, is the most evidence-based for controlling and improving blood sugar levels, and that they now recommend it as a potential therapy, as a potential treatment for those who are interested. And they list some of the articles and the science that is based on that. So they came out with this statement that now it should be at least offered to patients as one way of treating their type 2 diabetes. So, I think there's so many people that are changing their lives and health, and then they're telling, like you said, they're telling someone. And at our clinic, for instance, most patients enroll from word of mouth. Like they've heard or they've seen someone else they know. Like we don't have any budget to do publicity or marketing or anything. We do none of that. It's basically just word of mouth, or when their own doctors suggest they should enroll at Clinique Reversa. So yeah, word of mouth is, it's a grassroots movement, but it's also important that the top instances acknowledge the evidence and make statements. And Diabetes Canada finally made that statement. So hopefully things will get better now that people are asking for it from the bottom, and then the top instances will say, yeah, it's true that not eating sugar can help with your blood sugar level. That's kind of true,
That's great. Yeah, those steps are so important, and hopefully we are moving in the right direction as far as that goes. It is very, very hopeful. And it's interesting the way you phrase that. And we all feel the same way. Like we know what's going, if you go low carb and you are obese or diabetic, I pretty much can tell you what's going to happen. It might not happen overnight, but I can pretty much predict, and I know you can, and I know so many people in our world can. And we're not even saying like this is the only way. We're just asking, like, can this be an option that I can also talk about? I'm not saying it's the only way to do things, but can I at least mention it as something that would be effective? And I know, again, 100% of the time, basically it's going to be effective. We want to talk about it. That's it.
Yes, absolutely. I think we don't want to just talk about it. We want, well, maybe you do, but as a doctor, I don't want to just talk about it. I want every patient out there, every person out there who has a metabolic chronic condition caused by lifestyle, like obesity or type 2 diabetes or hypertension or whatever. I want all those people, all those patients to be offered all the options. So you have type 2 diabetes and you come in to see me. The general standard of care, the guidelines say, I should tell you to eat less, move more, improve your lifestyle. And if that doesn't work, come back in 3 months and we'll get you started on pills. A lot of people, a lot of doctors don't even say improve your lifestyle, and they just say, okay, we'll get you started on some drugs. We'll get you started on, glucose lowering drugs, cholesterol lowering drugs, blood pressure lowering drugs, and we'll do blood work every 3 to 6 months to see how it's going and stuff. That's it. You deserve to know that there's other options out there, all kinds of options. You deserve to know. You deserve to be offered all the options, and you deserve to be told the advantages and disadvantages, of the benefits and the costs and benefits. Like, you can take medication. Yes, sure, that's one option. You can do nothing. That's an option too. But here's what will happen, right? You can do bariatric surgery. Studies shows that this can reverse type 2 diabetes, so it counts as an option, right? You could do fasting. You could do low carb. You could do very low carb, so ketogenic diet. So these are all options that are worth being mentioned, and patients deserve to be told that these are options. It is not fair that you only get offered pills. That's not fair. That is not good medicine.
Yeah, it's not honest. You're not telling people the truth if you're just giving them that one option when you just listed several viable options and people can take their pick. I absolutely love that. I love that you've had so much experience on the ground helping people. And you do such a great job with all your content and your book of making things very, very simple for people. So I'm wondering, what kinds of challenges have you seen with your cohort of people in clinic, and how do you overcome those challenges with people?
Well, one big challenge that we have is that, a lot of people, especially at first, didn't know where sugar was. You know, a lot of people don't know that spaghetti is pure sugar, for instance, right? Or rice is pure sugar. So there's a part of the challenges is teaching, taking the time and the right structure to teach patients, to give them knowledge. But a second big challenge that we encounter is that a lot of our patients, what we realize after a few months and a few years, is that a lot of the patients who have the knowledge and have improved tremendously on their blood sugar, they lost weight and all that, sort of fell off the train and slipped back into old habits and became sick again and felt powerless to get back on the train and, to get back into their good habits. And for a long time, we're like, what is going on? But because in my mind, once you know, right? But knowing is not good enough. For a lot of people need support. They need to be accompanied. They need to be with someone who will help them troubleshoot, life events and stuff. Oh, I'm going to a wedding. I'm going to funerals. I'm going on vacation. What should I do? But also a big piece of the puzzle is food addiction. And food addiction is not something that we talk enough about. And so if you're addicted to alcohol, let's say, well, you know that you should quit completely 100% and never touch it again, because you cannot be moderate in your consumption of alcohol, right? So you haven't drunk in 6 months and you celebrate that with one beer. It's not going to be just one beer. You're most likely going to go back into being an alcoholic and drinking way more than what you want and losing control over that. Food is trickier because food you cannot stop eating, right? Obviously, but not every food behaves the same way in your mind, like in your brain and in your body, right? So getting food addiction recognized as a real addiction, it's taking a lot of work and a lot of time, and it's going to happen, but we're not quite there yet. So it's not known or recognized that you can get addicted to certain foods and that you should abstain 100% from that. So the people that have the hardest time sticking to good nutrition, so including eating properly, but not eating too, because you're not supposed, for your metabolic health, you're not supposed to eat in between meals. You're supposed to have maximum 3 meals a day. 2 would be ideal. And you stretch your fasting every now and then, 24, 36, or 42. This is really good for your metabolic health, right? So eating and not eating, but more than that, one piece of the puzzle of the people who struggle the most is to not touch their trigger foods that will make them back into their addiction and not being able to get out of it. And they see, like, for instance, a type 2 diabetes patient who reversed their type 2 diabetes, they don't need any more medication. They have perfect blood sugars all the time or almost all the time. And they eat their trigger food at a wedding, let's say, and boom, they're back into eating sugar, losing control. Their blood sugars go back up. They see it. They prick their fingers and they see it. And they're still powerless to stop it from happening. So this is a true addiction, and it's not recognized enough. But we're working on it. Me and my colleague Sophie Roland, we're working on developing programs for food addicts. There are some great programs out there in English, but unfortunately, not much is going on in French, right? But anyway, so the patients that are doing great and then are not doing great anymore, usually they're food addicts. So, and they need different support, they need different knowledge, they need a different way to manage the situation. And right now our clinic is not set up for that, but we recognize that this is a huge piece of the puzzle, for sure. And I think it's hard to change any habit. You've been doing the same thing over and over for years and years, and it's not so good for you. So you try to do something else. Like, let's say sports, training. Let's say you decide, oh, I'm gonna running is good, so I'm gonna or weightlifting or whatever you want. I'm gonna start training running 3 times a week. You do it for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and something happens, or you get a call, and then you have a lot of work, and then you get stressed, and then you go on vacation, and next thing you know, you've lost your good habit of training 3 times a week, right? Good habits are hard to keep, and it's the same with food and fasting. And so people need more support than just, well, here's the knowledge, let me teach you what you need to know, and off you go, So, and this is hard because providing ongoing coaching, ongoing support, ongoing ongoing support is it's costly. It's costly in terms of money and time too. So and patients don't necessarily have the money to pay for, I don't know, a weekly meeting with a professional or something. So this is a challenge, and we don't have the answers to what would be the best formula. But I know a lot of doctors out there are trying to figure out how they can help their food addict patients. Because that's not a matter of not knowing what to do. It's a matter of keep doing what works for them, what is good for them, despite adversity and addiction.
Yeah, no, that's so well explained. And I love, again, your content is really approachable, and it's really either inexpensive or free for the people that want to go out and find it. The information is there. And yes, there's going to be some kind of a cost to coaching, but it's like, dialysis is pretty expensive. Your copays for drugs are going to be pretty expensive. Yes. Dying early is not great. So we got to do something, and we may need to allocate your funds a little bit differently than you have in the past. But if we can reverse some of these diseases, and you can enjoy the rest of your life, and you can be healthy and fit and move around with your kids, it's totally worth it. Totally worth it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, if you think, we say to patients, look, yeah, for sure, having good, healthy habits is hard, but being sick is harder. But we cannot convince everybody to prioritize their health, and as a healthcare professional too, if you want to not burn out on this, you have to understand that sometimes people they still need time to figure it out from now what's their priority, and we cannot not save them, but not everybody will prioritize their health right now. So we say we cannot save them all, in the sense that sometimes people are just not ready to make significant changes because either they have an addiction that is not addressed, or they don't fully realize how sick they will be in the future. Yeah. Megan Ramos was telling me that some patients, she remembers back in the day, she was telling them, stop eating so much sugar. Your kidneys are already so weak. If you keep on eating this sugar and your blood sugars are all over the place, you will lose your kidneys. You will have to do hemodialysis, right? Or whatever. And she told me she was trying to convince them that this matters. This is important, that there's still time to do something. And some of them didn't listen to her, and then for all kinds of reasons, and lost their kidneys, went into hemodialysis. And she said some of them came back into my office crying, and they said, I'm sorry, I didn't listen to you. I'm in hemodialysis. Help me. Tell me what to do. I will do it. And it's too late. It's too late, But so sometimes it's too late. But for the vast majority of people that I see in clinic or who contact us, it's not too late. Today, doesn't matter how severe you are today, you can make changes that will impact your health positively, that will make a difference. Maybe we cannot get you back to being all brand new and super functioning normally, and but definitely we can improve or stabilize. That's for sure. Everybody, there's not one person that came to my clinic that wouldn't help improve or stabilize.
Yeah, it's such a more empowering message that you can start now. You can start today. You don't need to wait until January 1st. You don't need to wait until your diet starts on Monday. Start with your next meal and just slowly make some changes. Move in that direction and see what happens. And surely there must be people out there thinking like the thought of never having a dessert or never having a treat or whatever is so I don't know, so difficult to even comprehend, but you don't realize how good you're going to feel when you start eating the correct foods, how your tastes are going to change. And over time, you will surprise yourself. You probably won't even want the same things that you think you want today. It's quite remarkable how much that changes over time.
Absolutely. And if you feel totally overwhelmed with the thought of never having a dessert ever again, you can start by thinking, okay, maybe I will have a dessert at some other time, but not today. Today, I'm taking care of my health. And then tomorrow, you can recommit to the same thing. You can say, I don't know, maybe I'll have a dessert in my future, but today I am focusing on my health.
Yeah, I've heard so many people quitting smoking or quitting alcohol by taking that exact same approach. Just not today. I can later, I can tomorrow if I choose. If this isn't something I have to do, I'm just going to do it for today. I'm going to try to stick it out. And most people, I feel like they just kind of forget. they feel good and they forget and they go to bed and it's like, well, okay, maybe tomorrow. And the more you can do that, the more you're establishing those habits, which I absolutely love. One of the things that you have been involved with in the past is Diet Doctor. Can you explain what it's meant to you to be able to contribute what I would call my number one absolute favorite website and resource for low carbohydrate? What does that mean for you?
Absolutely. Diet Doctor is an amazing website. It started quite small. It was a blog that it is Andreas Einfeld. I totally mispronounced his name. I tried really hard like you did with my name and he just kept on laughing at me. So whatever. He started as a little blog in Swedish and then translated it into English, and it boomed from there because this information was so hard to find on the web back in those days. So it's definitely the best low carb. I refer my patients to that site all the time, and I really wish it was translated into French because you can use Google Translate, but it's not quite the same. And it's all free. All the stuff you need, all the tools you need, and all the knowledge you need to change your life, change your health, it's all free. You can pay a membership on Diet Doctor and you can have access to all kinds of other things, but all the basic information that you need to change your life around, it's free. So I love that. So at some point they were looking for bloggers or contributors, we discussed for a bit me moving to Stockholm and working full time with them. And I felt like, oh my God, wouldn't that be the dream to make a difference, but like globally instead of just in my little clinic, So I started, but that wasn't doable. So I started blogging for them. And I blogged for, quite a few months on whatever I could, whatever I saw in my clinic, whatever topics came up in my Metabolic at the Clinique Reversa. And I loved it. It's really an amazing team. They're really I've met many of them, team members, because they tend to come to the big conferences in the United States, the big low carb conferences. And everybody's so passionate. So, people who are passionate about helping other people improve their health, they're my friends for sure. We get along. I love them already, so we got along, and I love blogging for them. And then came to a point where I didn't have time anymore because I was writing my books, and so I stopped blogging for them. But I still recommend their website to everybody. You said that I've published 2 books, but I've published 6 books so far, and I have a 7th one in the making. And an 8th one on my mind, that
no
one
way,
working
great.
on it. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah. It is, and all of them are bestsellers, but only in French and only mainly in Quebec, right? So a very, very small market. We're like 8 million people in Quebec, and a bestseller is actually only 3,500 copies. That's a bestseller because it was so small, right?
Amazing.
So. My first book sold for 120,000 copies, which is almost unheard of. The one that was translated in English that you mentioned, which is really great. Nobody makes money from books in Quebec. It's so small, right? It's not like I'm going to stop practicing medicine or retiring from that money. It's ridiculous money. But nobody writes a book to make millions, or I don't know. I didn't. I wrote a book so that people would have access to information in French, because there was so little in French back then when I wrote my first book, and the second and third. That's a series anyway. It was to provide information, accessible information, and so I'm so glad that it was a bestseller, because that means that it did what it was meant to do. You know, it accomplished its mission to provide information and to give access to people to this knowledge. It's very important that people have knowledge so that they can make better decisions afterwards. So yeah, working for Diet Doctor was really great.
That's amazing. Do you know what the response has been in other French-speaking countries? Is that something you track, or is it mostly localized to French Canada?
It's more localized to French Canada, because in France is less aware, I would say, of low carb, reversing type 2 diabetes and all that. They're not glued to the USA the way Canada is, right? Obviously, and so they get less of the information that comes from the Americans unless it's been translated. So it's really, if you're in France, it's a lot harder to find information about low carb, ketogenic. And as far as I know, there's really just a handful of doctors who do this type of medicine. And as far as I know, most of them keep a really low profile. They don't want to have any trouble with their equivalent of the college. So I think it's less accessible. So, and I'm not known at all. I wasn't here, but at least I was a French Canadian doctor. So that can be written in my book. But over there, they're like, oh, this French Canadian, you know, I'm not even sure. Like, anyway, so like, it's not because you write a good book. I don't know if it's good, but it's not, even if, let's say my book is really good, it's not because you write a good book that it becomes a bestseller, right? Nowadays, there's a lot of marketing around books. You know, there's a lot of social media around books. You have to create events. You have to have followers. You have to have a high presence in the social media to get people to know you and to know your books. So I don't do any of that in France. But it's okay. My goal is not necessarily to conquer the world. My goal is to make a difference. And with the resources that I had, I was able to do that, at least in my part of the world. So I think that's pretty okay.
I absolutely love that. We get asked all the time what our next plans are, what our growth strategy is. And look, we're a tiny little business in the suburbs of Salt Lake City. We put out a podcast, we train our people, we help people when they need it. We're not trying to grow or be an empire, but the feeling of knowing that you help somebody in a day is so gratifying. It's why we pay for this podcast. It's expensive. It takes a lot of time, but it's wonderful to get the message out. And the passion and energy that just exudes from you is so infectious and amazing. And we're so grateful for you and what a difference you're making in the world. And I so much believe there's a ripple effect. As you help one person, they're going to go tell somebody else. Like you said, it's that word of mouth, and it's going to spread. And so we're so happy that you're doing what you're doing. We can tell that you're very happy doing what you're doing. Can you tell the audience where they can go to find you and connect with you in your work?
Well, I suppose your audience is mainly English speaking, so I don't think it would be of any much use for them to find me or to find my books, because they're all in French. If there are people in Quebec who speak English or who are bilingual and hear this, Clinique Reversa, we're still running. I don't live in Quebec anymore. I live in Singapore right now for a few years, but two amazing doctors took over the work that I did there. And so the clinic is still running. It's still not for profits. And so people can self-enroll. So you can go online, www.cliniquereversa.com. Anyway, you can find us in Google. So, and as for the books, you can type them in Amazon, but I'm telling you, they're all in French. And my goal on coming to your show today is really not a goal of self-promotion, hoping to make more money selling my books. I know that your audience will never buy my books or come to my clinic, and it doesn't matter, because that's not the point. This is not how I make my money. This is not how I get rich. This is not how I feel happy to, what makes me happy is to make a difference. And what makes me happy is to do this medicine. So if today your audience, I inspire some people to look into it, to look into low carb, fasting, ketogenic and all that, or reversing their type 2 diabetes, or if I inspired somebody to realize that you can change your health if you want to, then that's enough pay for me.
I absolutely love that. This has been such an amazing conversation. I'm going to butcher your name one more time, Dr. Evelyne Bourdua-Roy. Thank you so very much for that message. What you just said, I feel 100%. I know that you're not here to try to, make a profit or make a buck or whatever. You're just trying to share this message, and it's absolutely, like we said, very infectious, and it really makes a difference in the world. So we're so grateful for you. Thank you for taking time out of your wonderful summer vacation. If you're listening and not watching, you're missing out on like beautiful. Just you said outside of Montreal. It looks absolutely gorgeous there. So thank you for taking time out of your summer break to come chat with us and go enjoy the outside. It looks amazing.
Thank you so much for having me, Casey.
Absolutely. It was an honor. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.